Okay, good evening and welcome to the Meridian Parks and Recreation Commission meeting for Wednesday, June 8th, 2022. The time is 5:32 p.m. Rachel, could you please call roll?
Yes, thank you. Joe Greer,
Present?
Dom Gelsomino,
Present.
Jennifer Bobo,
Present.
Camden Hyde is absent, Mike Medlin is absent, Keith Bevan is absent, John Nesmith,
Present.
Mandy Roberts,
Present.
Brandon Simpson.
Present.
Okay, thank you. With that, could I entertain a motion to adopt the agenda?
Madam President,
Commissioner Gelsomino?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Nesmith seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is adopted. Hi, Keith. So I know that Keith Evans is present as of 5:33. Next, could I get an approval of the minutes from the April 13th, 2022 regular meeting?
Madam President,
Commissioner Gelsomino.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the April 13th regular meeting.
I'll second that as well.
Commissioner Nesmith seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Next, we have announcements with Shelley Houston, our marketing coordinator for Meridian Parks and Recreation.
There we go. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Just want to make sure the recording picks it up if that's necessary. Anyhow, boy, things are cooking and booking with our special events this month. We made it through Unplug and Be Outside, and then we went into our next big block of activities. And Sparklight Movie Night begins this Friday night, and we couldn't have a better movie. It's Disney's Encanto. So that'll be super popular. My twin sister. She has impeccable timing. So Encanto will be at dusk at Settlers Park. So that's what we're going to kick our season off. We've got 11 movies this year. So we'll go until, I think it's August 19th is the last Saturday. So that's our Sparklight Movie Night. Each Friday night, a free movie at dusk in Settlers Park. People bring their folding chairs, their lawn blankets, their picnic snacks. The concessions are open. If they come early, they can play on the playground or the splash pad. But once dusk falls and the movie begins, the remainder of the park is technically closed for the evening. So that's how we do Sparklight Movie Night. We've also got a brand new exhibit up on the third floor of City Hall in Initial Point Gallery, which is our art gallery that the Meridian Arts Commission kind of coordinates. We've got 4 landscape artists and a 3-dimensional mixed media type artist that have pieces on display, and it's quite lovely. It'll be there for approximately a month before it rotates again, and we have new artists. The really busy day we have coming up is this Saturday. So you have to think sunshiny, warm weather vibes, because Kleiner Park will be the place to be. It's going to have one of the largest car shows of the year. It's called Saturday in the Park. I think it's the Ford and Mustang Club, if I'm not mistaken, but it'll be hundreds of beautiful cars on display. The senior center will have a health fair going on, as well as a vendor and craft show. It's also Idaho's Free Fishing Day. So Idaho Fish and Game will have their Take Me Fishing trailer there from 9 to 2 for families or children that would like to come and try fishing, maybe for the first time or just to borrow the gear. They don't need license, and they've got instruction available, and they provide loaner poles and the bait and everything they need to give fishing a try. So that evening will end with our big finale, which is Gene Kleiner Day and the celebration of Kleiner Park's 10th anniversary. It'll be like 10 years in one day. They will be celebrating the dedication of the park, which was a gift to the city from a fellow named Gene Kleiner in honor of his father, Julius M. Kleiner, who formerly owned the property on which the park sits. He literally farmed it for many years. So he gave the gift of the land and the improvements to the city in honor of his father and his family. And so we're going to honor their legacy. And it's not widely being publicized, but members of the Kleiner family will be in attendance. So it'll be a real chance for them to see the progress the park has made and its growth and the new amenities we've added, and to have a little humble round of applause for what they've done. The night will feature at 7 p.m. a symphony orchestra concert. The Meridian Symphony will be free. Again, an outdoor event where people bring their own chairs and blankets. They'll play for about 45 minutes. There'll be a little intermission. We'll hand out some free ice cream cups. And then at about 8:15 or so, a really hip happening party dance cover band will take the stage. They're called Jukebox, and they're very popular and growing in popularity. So they play everything from disco to country to pop to rock to R&B. So hopefully we'll dance the night away. And that's how we'll pay tribute to Gene Kleiner's gift of Kleiner Park to the city. There's some other events you can take a look at. One I might call to your attention is on Wednesday, June 22nd, we'll have a couple opportunities here at City Hall for the public to come into an open house and take a closer look at some very preliminary concept plans for a future community center, as well as weigh in with some of their own thoughts or ideas or suggestions or priorities. So we'll have people on staff here from 11 to 1, kind of to hit the noon hour, or from 4 to 6 to kind of catch that end of the workday after work crowd. So those are opportunities to come and see what we're thinking in terms of the community center, and people can add their 2 cents worth. Anyway, I'll let you review the rest of the materials. As always, if you ever have any questions or wonder anything about any events, you can always just call or email and ask us, and we'd be happy to share the information. Does anyone have any questions at this time? Okay, I hope we see you out and about, especially if you do one thing, I would choose that Saturday night concert in Kleiner Park.
Did you say there was free ice cream?
Yeah, they're little sundae cups. Don't get too excited, but yes, we've got about 400 little cups of ice cream to hand out while supplies last, 1 per person, fine print, but yes. So,
Awesome.
okay, hope to see you all at our events. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Joe, sorry, well, I was loud. And Shelley, it just dawned on me as we were wrapping up, this is also our last commission meeting before the 4th of July. There's not another one between now and the 4th of July. You want to mention that one really quick?
Yes, every year, COVID and weather permitting, we have a family Independence Day celebration in Story Park. That's that park kind of near the Speedway, near the intersection of Main and Franklin, where we invite families to come and, again, bringing their chairs and picnic blankets and whatever they want, and to picnic and play games and spend time together. We generally have a band with live music and sometimes a few games set out. And then at dusk or shortly thereafter, maybe around 10 or 10:15, there's a professional fireworks display that we co-sponsor with the Meridian Speedway. So families know to stick around or to come towards the area and enjoy spectacular fireworks. We also have a row of food trucks providing dinner food and sweets. So it's a chance for families that need a place to gather and want that type of an atmosphere to come and spend time in the park. It goes from, I think, about 3 or 4 p.m. until 10 p.m. So I'll make sure you get more information on that as we come closer to. So, and then Dairy Days is this month. Oh my gosh, you guys, Dairy Days is coming up. You can check dairydays.org to see their schedule of activities. It's just constant. Tomorrow's coffee with the mayor. So if anyone wants to stop by the coffee house over on Locust Grove, I think it's 1800 North Locust Grove, kind of in that Fred Meyer shopping center down on the west end next to, there's a TCBY and a doggy grooming and maybe a tattoo parlor. So Antigua Coffee is where we'll be from 8 to 9:30 tomorrow. It never stops.
Thank you, Shelley. Okay, next on our new business agenda, we have the Ada County Parks and Waterways update with Scott Coburg. Is that right? Okay, sort of. Oh, it is, okay. Welcome.
Thank you. And commissioners, thank you for the invitation to attend. Thank you to Steve and Rachel for inviting me to be here. Last time I was here, I do recall some of your faces and names. I think it was about 2.5 years ago, and I think you might have 3 or 4 new commissioners now. Nothing else has really changed in the last 2.5 years in this community, right? No population growth, no COVID, no massive pandemic, no influence on parks or anything like that. So yeah, business as usual. I'm here tonight to provide a bit of an update on Eddy County Parks and Waterways, and specifically the Boise River float season, including, possibly some signage update. I had Commissioner Bevan out to the park a couple days ago with his signs by tomorrow, and we talked about some of our signage needs in Barber Park. And you're welcome to interrupt me at any time. If you have questions, please do. I'll try to get through this in 20 minutes and allow for additional questions at the end as well. So I'll kind of scroll through this, our department overview. Long-term goals and objectives for Eddy County Parks and Waterways is to efficiently use available resources, partnerships, which is a key cog in what we do is partnerships, and funding to fulfill the recreational needs of the citizens of Eddy County for parks, trails, pathways, waterways, open space, facilities, and services. Also to foster civic pride through stewardship of Eddy County parks and facilities, so Eddy County taxpayers are proud to use them and share them with others. It's inspiring just to come here tonight. I didn't know this event was happening here tonight. And, it's really cool to see the engagement in the community that Meridian is doing. And, I know COVID has kind of squashed that for the past couple of years, but I mean, there's so many like smiling, happy kids out there. They're learning a ton, and just really cool to see that event kind of back in play after a couple of years. And one other thing we attempt to do in our goals and objectives is to set a high bar for professionalism and standard of service. Metrics for success or our key performance indicators, these are some: customer satisfaction and feedback, awards, public recognition, positive media coverage, effective community partnerships, which I mentioned. And really these last 2 are the ones I'm going to highlight with Barber Park and the float season: facility usage and revenue. I understand, through some conversations with Steve, and I was invited to participate in some of the survey work that you all are undertaking with the updated master plan, which is tremendous. And Steve was extremely helpful. We are going to be going through a master plan revision as well, assuming that the commissioners approve my budget next week. So we're asking for some money. We're long overdue for an updated master plan. And as Steve put it, when you're adding an entire population of another city on top of a city, or multiple cities of hundreds of thousands of people from the last time your plan was done, it's definitely time to update. So we're about 15 years overdue on a master plan. But we do have some plan support in current plans on the books. We do have a comprehensive plan that was completed. Actually, it was called the 2025 plan. That one was done as 2016. And it wasn't park specific, it was Eddy County wide. Not super important for this presentation tonight, but a couple of quotes from some of those plans. The county may expend funds to maintain or improve existing agricultural lands and open spaces. This could take the form of upkeep, such as mowing and maintenance, or developing open spaces to support recreational activities. That's something Meridian is doing a ton of. You have some tremendous parks and seem to be continually upgrading and adding on, which is really beneficial to the population. And then the carrying cost of land, maintenance and upkeep are the full responsibility, of the county. Some of the recommendations from those plans were to acquire land like you all are doing for future parks, open space, recreational facilities and trails, maintain existing parks, open space, recreation and trails, and expand or renovate existing parks, open space areas and trails, including replacement of those facilities. We also would develop new parks, facilities, trails, and really what we've spent a lot of time on is kind of refining our management of these facilities in Barber Park in particular. So I'm not going to get into all these. These are the properties we do manage. Portions of them includes the Greenbelt. A lot of folks we don't know we manage and maintain all the docks at Lucky Peak, with the exception of Spring Shores Marina. So we received some good news 2 days ago when we learned that Lucky Peak would actually be full pool. Makes it a lot easier for our maintenance crew to actually access the docks, whereas we had projected probably working on anchor systems and maybe some of the cleats that we could work on by hiking up the beach to access them. But now everything's going to be floating. They'll be in use. I'm sure there'll be plenty going on. A couple other sites that, again, for tonight's presentation, maybe not that important, but spread throughout Ada County. This last one here, as I mentioned, the Boise River float season occurring in Barber Park and that we sort of orchestrate is what I'm going to emphasize tonight. Just an example, kind of how we're spread out. You can see Meridian sort of tucked into the middle there, and all the city limits are expanding. We generally don't, I shouldn't say generally, but it's not like we're accessing or acquiring property within Boise or within rather city limits or city areas of impact. However, Barber Park is within Boise city limits. It's an Ada County property within Boise City. Victory Wetlands is within the city as well. We kind of fill in the gaps. That includes the green belt, the gaps between cities. That includes areas outside of city limits in unincorporated Ada County. So we'll kind of just hone in on Barber Park. The county has had active management since the 70s. There's 68 acres of park property there. That bottom right there is, it is our headquarters. So whatever happens in Barber Park, it's where our entire staff is every day. That's where our office is located on the left. We have an event center just behind the office, which is a series of pictures on the left-hand side of this slide. And also our entire maintenance shop and facility is located in Barber Park. So it's truly our headquarters and also our busiest and most visited park. And it's really our only green park, whereas, Meridian has, a lot of those different irrigated parks with landscaping and those kinds of things. Barber is our only one. So if we zoom in on this map a little bit, give you a little bit better overview of what Barber looks like. Again, not even that much irrigated space. We're looking at a map here down in this corner where you see the number 3. That was the office building that I was showing in the previous slide. And then we have a lot of open space that is natural habitat for wildlife, and it includes some trail systems for pedestrians. It also, if you look at the proximity, the key to Barber Park is it's on the Boise River, right? That's the whole, influence of the Boise River float season. It is, as the crow flies, about 5 miles downstream from Lucky Peak Lake. So about 5 miles downstream is Barber Park, the primary launch point for floating the Boise River. And so we operate the parking, the river floating amenities, rental concession, snack shack, restroom, shuttle, building facilities, trail grounds, irrigation equipment. Everything in Barber Park is under our management umbrella. We do contract some services to get through the float season, but for the most part, it's Ada County Parks and Waterways staff. So the big question we get asked this time of year, every year, is a funny one if you really think about it. It's when do we open the river? When's the river open? Is the river open? The river's never closed, right? Everybody knows that here, but most people that we talk to are new. I was thinking about this the other day too, kind of like a younger generation as well, right? So as those kids that grew up in the valley kind of learn what this thing is, it's a whole new era, of new teenagers, new college kids, or new families that have no idea what this is. And so we're continually educating to kind of that first level, entry level floater group. So some folks that are natives or been around here forever, they're like, what? It's not closed. You can go float anytime. We try to provide as much information as we can to sort of straighten this out. So how do we decide? And what I'm saying, when I say open, that's why it's in quotes. We're talking about the component is floating 6 miles for novice floaters between Barber Park and Ann Morrison. And there's 3 key components we're really looking for in Barber Park. The first is a really simple one, outside air temperature. Our average daily high is above 80 degrees and is the extended forecast projected to be above 80 degrees for the average high. Part of that has to do with the fact that the river is, our watershed goes all the way into the Sawtooth. The river's extremely cold in the summer and hypothermia is real. When you're floating for a couple hours in the river in something that's not designed to float in a river, there's going to be a lot of rescues. And so we try to be mindful of that. Another simple one, existing and projected river flow. That's a second key component. Really are flows in what we would consider appropriate for floater range, for novice floater range. We know this number based on experience. We have data back 20 years that indicates when the float season is operated. We know incidents that occur and at what levels they could occur and people get into trouble. So between 7 and 1,500 cubic feet per second at Biggie. Biggie is the Glenwood Bridge. That's the name of the gauge. The USGS gauge is called the Biggie gauge. And do we expect flows to remain stable between 700 and 1,500? Because sometimes things change, and I'll get into that at the end here. River debris and obstructions is the last key component. Have the obvious hazards and obstructions been identified and located in the river? Meaning, do we know there's a strainer here? Meaning, it's a down tree in the river. If somebody finds themselves outside of their flotation device, could they get forced into that strainer and submerged underwater and suffer a flush drowning? Or is it likely to occur? Is it an obvious dangerous hazard? We're not cleaning the river. There's none of that going on. There's Boise Fire kind of integrates or initiates that process, and they're trying to be mindful of fish habitat and temperatures in the river, all the things that are important for the ecosystem of the river, but you can't ignore an obvious and dangerous hazard. So has that been completed? That's another question we ask. So once all those things happen, and this is kind of some example photos of debris mitigation occurring. Sometimes we do post that the river is unsafe to launch at Barber Park. You can see an example of a strainer there in that photo on the left. And then we also conduct kind of a trash cleanup and inventory just to kind of continually throughout the season with our staff, report anything we find that is of concern. So once all those things line up, the way we will kind of evaluate a few other factors in Barber Park and operations in Barber Park. And then our primary method and microphone is social media. We use the Facebook page at Float the Boise River. We've kind of trained all media to go to that site for the latest updates. And we'll make an announcement and we'll do some interviews and stuff and let folks know, hey, all Barber Park facilities for floaters are operational. And all those things have lined up. So last year, when we made that post, we get a lot of interaction with that. So you can kind of read the engagements and numbers and page follows and stuff. This is kind of our main platform. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about last season, which was a historic season. So much like a lot of the parks in the community over the last few years, parks and trails and pathways are what absorbed a lot of the interest from the community and like, hey, I don't have to go to work. And, whatever's happening with COVID, I'm working for, we were busier than ever across the board everywhere. We operated every float season continually. So in 2019, 2020, 2021, we never didn't have a full float season. Last year, we opened on June 15th, we always close all operations on Labor Day, no matter what. This was a longer season, 76 days. So I mentioned our office is in the park there. As soon as we make that announcement, we're bracing for 70 whatever days of, this is our life now. We're in it. And we have staff working 7 days a week, evenings, morning, all the whole time. And so you can imagine, it takes its toll over time, but it's kind of it's enjoyable in some ways too. Some other numbers of interest maybe there. So there you go. You kick off the season, everybody's kind of on the river. We're operating a parking kiosk. We're turning rentals on the river and people are doing their thing. So at the end of the season last year, some of the numbers, and I mentioned visitation and revenue. So the numbers in these, I don't have to spend too much time on them, but they mean a lot to us because they give us really good ideas of, what to prepare for next year, this year, and what we've done and accomplished. So last year, parking, Ada County charges $7 to park in Barber Park. We had a 21% increase in gross revenue from 2020. 2020 was our previous high on record, again, a COVID year. Total number of vehicles parked was over 33,000. Now, that's the most in history. A 435 daily average is pretty big. If you look at the bottom of the screen there, we only have about 180 designated asphalt stalls in Barber Park. And so when you look at that 435 daily average, that means we're parking cars in the field on a daily, overflow parking field on a daily basis. We can fit up to roughly 500 to 520, somewhere in that range, depending on how efficiently we park the field. But this was unheard of, 5 years ago. We did not fill the field on weekdays. We did not park in the field on most weekdays, like 5, 6, 7, definitely not 9, 10 years ago. And the last couple of years, we're in the field regularly. Every day we get into it. Fridays we're filling up now too, not just Saturdays and Sundays. So extremely popular. The shuttle service, was a 21% increase over the 2019 season. We didn't run full shuttles in 2020 because of COVID restrictions. In 2019 we did. So that's the best number we've got. They were full again last year. And 974 shuttle riders in a day. We do run on weekends. There's 5 shuttles. Our contractor, I should say, is running 5 shuttles every 20 minutes at Ann Morrison and dropping off in Barber. So you saw a lot of, highest on record and all those kinds of things. Same thing here, just kind of reiterate that. 4-person raft rentals, over 7,600 rented throughout the course of the season, which was a 35% increase over the previous year. Most raft rentals in a day, 210, most in history. Everything is most in history. 6-person raft rentals, 6,634, most in history, 30% increase. 221 a day. All these, I'll just reiterate, the kayaks, most in history, the deluxe tube rentals, most in history. We're sort of bracing for this year because we know we're seeing the most visitation we've ever seen. A lot of these occurred on July 3rd, of course. So if you're reading this and you're a floater, now you know when not to go float the river, right? That's a good take-home message for anybody is, yeah, Tuesday early afternoon is a great time if you want to take your family floating. There won't be a lot of people out there. If you come on one of these days, you're going to have trouble finding parking and anything else. So we have a revenue share agreement, and the contract has an interesting structure to it, but ultimately what that resulted in was about $322,000 in revenue for the county. Just that rental concession, which was a 40% increase over 2020. So that kind of brings us to this year. When will the 2022 float season begin? Everybody's asking that same question. 3 key components. We talked about it. Outside air temperature. Well, okay. A daily high above 80. Well, today was 73. So no. Is the extended forecast projected? Oops, sorry, I got a misspelling in there. Projected to be above 80. No, unstable, down to 63. If you looked at the forecast for next week, it's going to get high, warm again, and then cool off. What about existing and projected river flow? This one's a real interesting one this year. So flows between 700 and 1,500 at Biggie? No. Flows today were 437. Now, this is the lowest, and I'll show you a post in a minute, but in 30 plus years, that we've ever had in the first week of June. We've never had sub 500 flows the first week of June. And in going back 30 years in my records, and I didn't go beyond that. I just made enough of a point by saying it's been 30 years since we've had that low of river flow in the first week of June. Now, everything's about to change, and you've kind of seen what's happening. It's raining again here a little bit today, but I'll talk more about that. Flows to remain stable between 700 and 1,500? No, flows are expected to reach 1,800. So we're going to scream right from the low end through the floater range into the high end, beyond the high end, I should say, for floating. And this is that balance. And this is why we kind of are like our inner circle. We're very protective of a date because as soon as we say something, it's kind of like cat's out of the bag. And every year, something changes. This year, I thought it would be the most predictable year we'd ever had. I took my crew out, we inventoried debris, and told Boise Fire, we know you can't get your boat out on this low water, but here's 8 spots we think need to be mitigated. And so we were kind of had the wheels in motion. We were told by all of the water managers we work with, Army Corps, Bureau of Reclamation, Department of Water Resources, yeah, you're not getting any more water as far as we can tell, as recently as a week ago. Within the last 48 hours, we were told not only are they filling up Lucky Peak, Arrow Rock's already full, Spillway can't take anymore. You know, they're about 95 is full for Arrow Rock. And Anderson Ranch is probably going to get above average, which is unusual. It's a huge reservoir. Not only are they filling the lakes, but now they're turning on the water for fish passage for downstream salmon migration in the Columbia Basin and lower Snake Basin. So it's cold water that comes from this system that helps fuel salmon spawning downriver. And who would have thought we would have that available this year? Sometimes it happens earlier in the season, but they were just holding water. That everything turned up. We went from drought to now, you know, flow augmentation to even some like little whisperings about we could go into flood control on the dam system at some point if we keep getting this kind of rain because the reservoirs are going to be full. So they'll have to adjust for releasing water so the dams don't get too full. So totally turned everything on its head. So glad we didn't announce any date. Didn't get too over the top and announce a date. So the last thing here is river debris and obstructions, obvious hazards. Like I mentioned, we identified them, but none of that can happen now because everything will change. New debris will be lifted, moved, placed, trees will fall in at these flows, and it'll have to be an entirely kind of reset process. And so this was the post related to that. And we just made earlier today. Again, as I mentioned, first time in 30 years we've seen into the Glenwood gauge. The big fine print, or sorry, not fine print, but bold print, this increase will put flows beyond what is considered appropriate for novice floater recreation. And yet I guarantee there will be people floating the river, and hopefully none of us hear about it because it's going to be pushy. If you can do anything to kind of help us message, I know, you know, it's not necessarily the river that runs through Meridian, you know, but there are pieces and parts as you kind of, you know, as Meridian expands areas of impact and city limits, but really just direct folks to the Facebook page. And we also have floater guides in the back. If anybody wants them, I can leave them here. They're just little pamphlets. That's really helpful. They already got them. Okay. Thank you, Rachel. And that's kind of it. That'll stand for any questions.
Madam President.
Sure, Gelsomino.
Scott, thank you so much for joining us again. And a couple of years ago, I had asked you a question regarding cell coverage up at Lucky Peak. Do we have any updates on that? Because I love when I hear the word safety from an entity, an institution such as any government institution or in particular Parks Department or any government department, that's when my ears perk up because that's when I'm happy, especially when I have kids and they like going to Lucky Peak. So do we have any updates on that as far as getting better self-coverage out on the lake?
Madam President, Commissioner, yeah, great question. I should have come prepared to answer that better for you, shouldn't I? We just hosted our Lucky Peak Lake Partnership meeting up at the lake with all 3 commissioners present. Believe it or not, all 3 county commissioners were there. Army Corps was there and State Parks was there as well. And there was discussion about that. It's not is it a repeater station? I can't remember the terminology, but there was discussion about the additional efforts that are being made to make sure cell service is available. Because when we're even up there, it's funny because at that day at Spring Shores, you know, the commissioners are, the courthouse was shut down because we had all 3 commissioners and they didn't have cell service when we were sitting there at Spring Shores before going out on the lake and then discussing things. Now, I didn't check my cell service on the lake that day. I will try to find you a better, more detailed answer on where we are today and what the timeline is. But I know Army Corps and state parks in particular are really taking that consideration to heart. You know, how can we make it safer up there? Yep. Good question. Yeah.
Memory.
Yeah, no kidding. I wish I would have remembered that.
The reason is because my kid or our kids live up in Idaho City. So from the point of where you cross, now I have T-Mobile, it depends on whoever you use. From the moment you cross the Highway 20 and Warm Springs intersection, all the way to get till you get to Sasparilla's, where we meet our kids to pick them up every other weekend, there's no cell service. And so, I mean, I know that the county parks and waterways are limited to parks, but that whole stretch of road needs a lot more cell coverage. Anything happens, there's no way to get a hold of anybody.
Very good point. Do you have a moment for a very brief story about Idaho City and state parks there?
Absolutely.
So during the course, this isn't necessarily related to communications, but one of the challenges, it relates to the challenges we're all experiencing, but it is our seasonal staffing and hiring. And I'm sure you're experiencing that across the board with full-time staffing. And I know the mayor's made some steps to try to, increase rates of pay and stuff, but in particular, Sarat Nickel, he lives at Spring Shores Marina. He's lived there for about 25 years. He's the manager for state parks. He has, because of the increase in fuel costs and the difficulty in trying to find and obtain seasonal staff, he is now recruiting almost exclusively in Idaho City and Boise County for kids to come down the hill or any workers to come down the hill and work Spring Shores. So we're all the partners that we're involved with are having the same struggles with hiring staff at these low wages that can afford to drive to a site like Spring Shores Marina to work, or even Barber Park, right? So it's a little bit off the beaten path. Meridian, centrally located, might play more in your favor, but that's a challenge. And so he was telling us, and think about a busy boat ramp at Spring Shores this year. He was telling us he just hired his first 14-year-old to help as a seasonal. That was the kind of the best they could find. And so he's going to have a 14-year-old staff member. And hopefully, that's going to be a stressful environment, good learning experience, I'm sure. But the message we keep trying to reiterate to any users of recreation this busy summer season is, hey, be courteous, be kind to everybody around you, to the public servants around you, to the seasonal staff and kids. Like, they're hard enough to get hired. We don't need to lose them, and we don't need them to be traumatized and never want to work in that kind of environment again, because we need good people learning those kind of skills that it takes to work with the public. So,
Madam President, I have a question.
Commissioner Roberts.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Scott, for the presentation. You had mentioned that 322,000 was generated by the shuttle revenue alone. Is that the right number?
Madam President, Commissioner, no, it's actually the total contract. So it's equipment rental
Okay,
and shuttle
Okay.
combined. Yep.
okay. And then is that turned around to operate and maintain the shuttle service, or how are those revenues, I guess, spent once they're
Sure.
gathered?
Yeah, great question. So the way that we retain those revenues, the county retains that contract revenue share, is that it becomes a portion of Parks and Waterways fund balance initially.
Yeah.
And then we can integrate that fund balance in future budget requests for larger scale capital projects. What we tend to do, and what we're doing right now, I didn't share today, is we have been making improvements over the past 2 years to Barber Park. We're doing greenbelt projects. So what we tend to do is invest it right back into our local recreational resources, and specifically in Barber Park when we can.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Sure.
That's great to hear.
Anyone else? Well, I was here when you came forward and presented, and I always appreciate the updates. I grew up here, so as you said, I've always known that, and I grew up on a farm, right? So water, for us, water season, of course, is when the ditch writer opened the gates and we had water, but really appreciate all the information, and especially, I don't know, honing in on the recreation part of it, right? It's applicable.
Yeah.
So, but we always look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate the invitation, and thanks for having me back. Yeah, sure. Enjoy the event. This is a great thing you got going on. So
There
thanks
are
again.
Stickers at that table. I just put them out.
All right.
Sorry, they're emojis. They're really cute. I get sidetracked. Next on new business, we have the arts and culture update with Cassandra Schiffler with the Meridian Parks and Recreation Arts and Culture Coordinator.
You already knew she is ill tonight, and so we will move her to the next available agenda, and you can move on to the next agenda item.
Just looking, I'm thinking, oh, there's nobody else in here, so. Thank you. So the next item on new business is a Pathways Tour debrief from the May 11th, 2022 Parks and Recreation event that we had with Kim Warren, our Meridian Parks and Recreation Pathways Project Manager.
Good evening, Madam President, Commissioners. We did have really great weather for our Pathways tour last month. It was a little bit luckier than we're getting today, although it seems to be going fine. And I know that some of you weren't able to make it, but we did get some people from other departments. So we had a good showing, and that was kind of a cool addition that I think even with more commissioners present, we might carry forward in the future. So this is just to go over that field trip, a few reminders, and see what you thought. We were in the northwest part of town where that green circle is. I'm sure you remember if you were there, but just to refresh everyone's memory. And it was a portion of, I have this funny diagram that's from our early master plan. I think it was 2007 that I think of as the running circle. That's kind of a general framework of our pathways. So the Meridian loop, and then the 5 mile and the 10 mile pathways that cut across that loop. And that green area, or at least for our pathways tour, we were on part of the Meridian loop, and that's really getting to be quite complete. It's not quite as round as it looks on that schematic map, but we've just got a couple of segments left to fill in. So that's kind of exciting. And here's the reminder of the tour route where we started at Hawaii High School. We didn't end up going south to peak at the Highway 16 alignment, but we did go north. We crossed the 5 Mile Creek. We went through the Oaks, looked at a new project, quartet across Black Cat, saw the new roundabout at McMillan, and headed up through Jump Creek and then on to the new elementary school. So it was a great route. I think the only crossing that wasn't signaled was at number 7, where we sort of buzzed across Black Cat. But it was, I think it was it was at least 8 miles, that round trip. So again, we're glad to have these longer options. So I would be curious to hear general thoughts and comments on, your impressions, or if you have ideas or suggestions. Did that feel like a good length? And then maybe some thoughts on what we'll look at next year, next time we tour. So I'm going to go back to the route map. Does anybody have a comment or a question?
I do. I really appreciated that you invited people from different departments, and even Steve Knorr from City of Eagle, the other pathways.
Yes.
Yeah. Pathways, I guess manager there. So his title would be.
Yeah, Madam President, Steve, I think he's the Pathways Superintendent, Steve Noyes. Yeah, no, it's nice. I think so many of us in our department work side by side, but kind of leading different kinds of efforts. And so I like that fine. And I like being around the recreation crew, but it really is nice to interface with somebody who kind of does what you do. And I did later go on a tour of some of the Eagle pathways with him just down near Eagle Road in the river, which was also interesting. I mean, it's just such a different consideration, Eagle on the river and the foothills versus Meridian, but kind of fun to see.
Emphasize on how nice our system has come together. So, and of course, always makes me proud. But I also, we had a couple, we had someone from environmental
Um, Yes, Madam President, we had Jason Korn, who's environmental and he does floodway FEMA kinds of reviews. And then we had Sayard, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, Schultz, who was also, I think she's solid waste in public works. You could probably find her somewhere out there.
And she rollerblades.
Oh, yes, she was a great addition. And then we also had Adrian Weatherly, formerly from the clerk's office and now in our legal department. She joined us too. She's a fairly avid cyclist. So yeah, it was and a lot of these people I just kind of happened across and mentioned it, and they were enthusiastic to join us. So
Also think it was nice to have other people to see what we see, right? Because for us, it's something that we go over all the time, but to kind of build a ship, I don't know.
Madam President, if I could interject along those
Right.
same lines, the one, we also had the Planning and Zoning Commission member. I don't know if he's the president. I thought that was a fantastic addition because what they do through developing or, reviewing and approving conditions of approval on development is key to us getting these pathways. So that was
Andy.
a great addition as well. And Kim was invited to present to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And I'll let you talk about that.
thanks, Steve. Yes, that was last week, I believe, with planning and zoning. And I think it must have sprung from that Pathways field trip, but it was, they were doing some training, how we have turnover of commissioners, our new commissioners. So just as Scott does for us every couple of years, here's how it works, here's what's going on. So I was invited to give an overview of Pathways. And it was a really great discussion and conversation. Felt very supported, as I generally do here at the city and just in the community. But it felt like a really kind of healthy overlap to see some names and faces.
Well, and when we had I think it was Volunteer Appreciation Day, when you could come to City Hall. I know that I came to that, and so did Commissioner Simpson. Okay. Oh yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure you're there.
Yeah.
So sitting at the table was Andy, and I had been doing the interviews for the commissions, and we were kind of doing those together so that there's someone that would work better for him. But he was asking about one of the workshops we were having, and I said, well, we have that, but we also have the Pathways Tour, and his son does I think they do BMX. Really into bicycling. So anyway, because what I have noticed from situations like that, or even being on other committees, commissions don't really know each other or interact. And so I think it's imperative to be able to share that information because, I assume just everybody knows they're in Meridian, but there are a lot of things with planning and zoning, that they've brought up or that he's spoke about that I didn't know about. So
That's a good observation, Madam President. And I think that, they are supporters of the conditions that I put out there. But sometimes it's easier it's just easier to back something up or stick with it when it seems less random and more tied to a bigger system. So I think that one thing that's also happening is coming a bit more out of COVID, even our departments, but also commissions, everyone's been so kind of siloed off with their own groups for so long that overlap felt especially good, I think, with other department representatives showing up.
Sorry, I'm taking over. Does anyone have any comments?
Madam President, I would
Commissioner
just like to let you all know, and I apologize to my fellow commissioners that I didn't really catch up with you out on the trail. Thank you so much for inviting me. I learned a very valuable lesson, though, about why these pathways are so important and critical. So even though Ms. Warren told me to take U-Stick out from Linder, I was at my mom's and I was going to ride my bike out. I took Cherry Lane because it was a little closer. Once I got about 1.5 miles, 2 miles, not only were there no paths or sidewalks along the road, there aren't even any shoulders. And I'm not kidding, like maybe a foot of shoulder space that's really gravelly or whatever. So I immediately felt unsafe, got off my bike and started walking instead, just so I could monitor the traffic. So I really wasn't able to catch up with you guys, but to me, that just really underscores the need for these off-road routes for everyone to stay safe and to be able to travel around. So it was a good lesson. And I did on my own, I got to the lower part of the tour. I didn't get up to the gondola drive section, but I learned it was a great experience. And it made me want to ask you, when is the 5 Mile Creek section going to be done?
Which section are you referring
Well, I
to,
guess
Commissioner?
yeah, between Black Cat Road and 10 Mile.
Oh, in a previous life at the city, we called that segment D, and there
Oh,
was an
okay.
explanation for it.
Okay.
But between Black Cat and 10 Mile, we are working on that. And that's going to be so exciting. I'm thinking of it as our golden spike moment, where all of the maybe 4 to 5 miles of pathway along the 5 mile to the southeast meets up with the couple of miles that we have going to the northwest. So that project, in fact, I can tell you more in my update. Is it fine to just talk about it here? So, oh, no, I'm sorry. It doesn't relate, but we do have a project that is underway now. We're looking at a crossing of 5 Mile Creek, which is 9 Mile, right there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we have plans. ACHD owns a parcel. We're doing plans. They're going to give us an easement, and we'll find a way to have them reimburse us through a cost share agreement. Then we're going to go essentially from this point as far as the Cortez subdivision, which is under construction. And we have an agreement with Brighton Corporation where they're constructing a vehicular bridge crossing with standard sidewalks. And they agreed to let us reimburse them for additional sidewalk width. So we'll have a 10-foot crossing up to their pathway, which will run, on the north side of the 5 mile there. So we'll need to obviously have a crossing at Black Cat, but that's underway. So we're really excited about that. That's been a blank spot on the map for a long time. And it'll be a little while yet, but it's
Thank
going.
you.
And Commissioner Roberts, thank you for your efforts. I know you had a lot of things going on, so you're really, I'm
You are
sorry that you're on
welcome.
your own tour, but you were thought of.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Bobo.
Sadly, I missed it, my favorite one, but I couldn't be avoided. But I do have a somewhat adjacent question. The 10 Mile crossing just north of the trail hub, there's like a hawk. I don't know the name of the street, but it's right before McMillan. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, it's
It
north
is
of,
showing on the map.
it's by our trail hub
There's a trail hub and
property
it's just
right there.
higher. No,
and the
higher,
crossing's just right there.
higher.
Oh, closer
Right there.
up there. Okay,
That
yes.
section, is there, can you get from that section all the way over to Jump Creek on a pathway?
Oh, there is pathway here, but not, we're working on for some reason,
Walmart, right? Can I just drive?
I'm not sure what is there. I know that we are working on conditioning a 10-foot pathway segment that will take a slightly different route and go here. But then the best crossing is probably going to be at the intersection.
Well, I could take
And
the
down.
black line, right? It's the pathway.
Yeah, you could take that black line. There's just not a crossing of McMillan there. So you'd have, if traffic weren't heavy, you could zoom across and have pathway there and then cross into, I think it's Bridge Tower. So, yeah, and those so close. I know it's really taking shape. Anyone else?
Madam President.
The last pathways tour, I came down 10 Mile. So I had to I went behind Walmart through that subdivision and then. Yeah, it is. You do have to cross and there aren't any cars. Commissioner Nestor, sorry.
Oh, no worries. Kim, I just want to compliment you. I think you did a great job on the tour. It was fun to get out in an area of the city that is not only growing, but I personally was amazed of all the growth and, new. My question is, I know we've discussed it, not relating to the tour, but just relating to especially comments that have been made. Has there been any energy going to a app or something that somebody could take off and kind of know the trail, because because we are so spread out, things rapidly change, chunks get filled in. It's a little daunting to go, I'm just going to go on an adventure and see if I can make it. Has there been, I know we've talked about it, but is there any energy towards maybe getting I don't know, an app, Google map overlay, or I don't know, GIS help us out on how to connect, get on a pathway and know where you could go?
Commissioner Nesmith and Madam President, that's an ongoing discussion. It's definitely on the list. I haven't made it, I guess there's some research that needs to be done to know how that's going to happen. But yes, I agree that's important. I know that as part of our Urban Land Institute panel and placemaking, wayfinding and is a part of that. I know that when I was out on just the tour route that we took last month, sometimes, these are very big blocks. They're 1 mile by 1 mile. Yeah, but strangely, I feel like I can kind of get lost on the grid. So I come up to Black Cat and I think, is this Black Cat? Is this 10 mile? So I have ideas for that. And I know that the panel will. I think, the tech component is something we definitely need to do. Steve, do you know any more about that than I do?
Well, I have a comment and then it becomes a question for you, but the mayor actually had us do an update on the map a year or so ago that's on the website, because there is a need for information that people can access. And while there's no specific plans or ability to do an app, we at least wanted to have a current map updated on the website that people could access and see, what is continuous and what is not. So I don't know if that's been updated again since last year when we last updated it at the mayor's request, but maybe that's where you could take over from there.
Steve, that's a good point. We do have resources online that it's essentially a GIS map that looks a little odd when you get to the website, and then you can kind of dive in and pan and zoom. So it's a little bit better for charting a route. And then we do have some printable maps. They're on 11 by 17 paper. They're okay if you know the city. It's a 34, almost 35 square miles. And so it's hard to know how to show it. A couple of other things that I will say, we have been working with GIS to improve the data. For a while, it was more pixels than lines, and now it's lines that are connected. And I know there are other sites. I'm trying to remember the person I talked to, but it's a national organization that publishes pathway data. You can kind of look up these rides and tours in various places. And our data is getting good enough, and we have a long enough run now that I think we could upload to some of those sites if people are searching. And then one other thing, someone from the mayor's office was doing like a welcome packet for new residents to Meridian and said, do you have a pathways map? And we kind of gave them a nod, like we do, but so GIS had the idea to just put a QR code on this postcard they were sending out so that you could scan it and sort of get to our map quickly. So that may be an interim bridge. I know we're also torn between, we do have our stripe on the 5 mile, and we will continue that, I think, as it connects across that what is now a blank mile. So that helps a little bit when you're out in the field. It doesn't, we're working on some of the mileage markers and other things. So.
I was just checking because I thought before I had seen some pathways even on Google Maps, but there is a detail that you can select with bicycling, and it shows a dashed line throughout the city. I don't know how that correlates to the pathways map.
I consult that
How
map
it's
often, and I haven't looked at
created,
that.
but it might be something of use. Some of it looks like it's following streets or maybe a way to get through neighborhoods.
I'll definitely take a look and report back on that one. I think it'll be more and more important. So it's on the list. Thanks.
Thank you for the update. I'd looked, and it's been a while since I've looked at the GIS map. It was hard to really follow, at least for me, with, the dotted lines, and they change colors, and you're trying to figure out, you almost need the little captions that say gap, little tech help, because it's, designed for architects and that, I don't know, it's just from a user-friendly standpoint, it wasn't, but, it's all good. We're trying, so I just was wondering what the update was. So thank you.
Good question. Anyone else?
I don't-
Great, thank you so
All right,
much.
thank you.
Okay, moving on to old business. We have a Meridian pool update with Garrett White, Meridian Parks and Recreation Manager.
Get that started. All right, so the Meridian pool update. So there's a lot of things that have happened, and some of you guys probably already kind of know some of this stuff, but if I start going too fast, please stop me, ask questions. Happy to answer anything I can. Go to the next one. So the basic pool information right now is the opening day. First day of open swim and swim lessons. Session 1 was last Monday or yesterday, or what? Yeah, 2 days ago. Opened good. We got about 80 to 90 kids in the pool that day for public swim. Swim lessons were completely full. Right now, based on the number of guards we had, we were only able to offer group lessons because we could hit more kids that way. Because we have a lot of rookies that needed some shadow time on how to, they passed all the tests in the classroom regarding swim lessons, but needed some shadow time to do the physical portion of it. Session 2, we want to start offering private lessons as well as the group lessons. The first day that we opened swim lessons, we grossed over $25,000 in revenues just from swim lessons, and they all filled up within probably by about noon that day. I mean, it was just a huge demand for swim lessons, and we have a list of about probably 200 people just waiting for private lessons. So there's a need, obviously, for swim lessons in the pool. Obviously, still a need for public swim. Open swim hours are Monday through Friday from about 1:30 to 4:30, and that's the public open swim. We were really hoping to be able to go 7 days a week or at least one day on a weekend, but the reality of that is we are lacking staffing like just about anybody else, right? So we're trying to do that. We are closing weekends, but we are going to open on Saturday, the 25th. It's Dairy Days. They have a big Dairy Days thing, obviously, with the parade and this and that. So we're at least making the effort to try to open that day, and we already have it staffed. So that will be a Saturday open. And as we get farther in the season and we can offer more hours to some guards that maybe pass a different test or whatever, then we will try to open. But right now it looks like we'll be closed on weekends for that. It's admission-based, first come, first serve, no exceptions. Family pass holders are not guaranteed any attendance in the pool when they're at capacity. Our capacity is 150 kids. On hot days, we reach that capacity. And then we have to, unfortunately, turn some people away, and they're not real happy, but at the same time, it's a safety thing. If guards can't see the water, can't see the bottom of the pool, it's not a good thing. So it's strictly a safety thing. I wish we had a bigger pool. We could have take everybody, but the reality is we can't. Pricing, I just kind of mentioned pricing there. Really, the open swim pricing is what we use quite a bit. It's $2, $3, or $4. It's really based on age, not necessarily where you live. Home court is the same way, just based on where you live and your age as well. So $2, $3, or $4 just for day admissions. And then obviously the season pass for families. As I start going through this, I'm going to list a lot of projects that we've done. And as I was putting this little presentation together, I was thinking, holy cow, we've done a lot. And I don't want this to come across as all we're doing is fixing stuff and repairing stuff and put things together. And as most of you guys know, we did a pool inspection prior to us taking over the maintenance and operations of the pool, obviously, just to make sure we kind of knew what we're getting into. Now, not going to lie, there were some surprises that weren't necessarily covered in the inspection, but the overall inspection of the pool did have some things that needed replaced. But the overall feel was it's a good facility. It's still working order. We can still operate. We can still provide public swim and swim lessons for kids. In doing that, we had our friends from Ymca come over and kind of give us a quick tour and a glimpse of it. The YMCA came out with all their 2 head of maintenance, as well as their Mike K. Steve can say his last name better than I can. Who oversees the South Y. He oversaw a lot of the Y's pool operations for like almost 20 years. So it's very knowledgeable guy. So try to use our resources and get them their eyes on it as well, just to make sure that we, again, aren't going to be surprised with some stuff. So keep that in mind as I go through this. Some of these things are minor maintenance. Some of them are bigger maintenance items that we wanted to get done. And in Ward's defense, when they gave us Fuller Park, they lost their maintenance person that oversaw some of the maintenance of the pool as well as the park. So keep that in mind as we go through this, but overall, it's a good facility, good, ready to operate. So some of the projects we've done is the access prevention, and this was basically for the pool. The gate was about 5.5 inches, almost 6 inches off the ground. Per code, it can only be about 4.5 inches at the most. So we had to fabricate it and lower it and get it right. And this also has to meet the right height. So our park staff, being the amazing park staff that they are, were able to take that down, fabricate it, put it back up in about 2 days. So they were able to take care of that. Obviously, they put a temporary fence up there, so it just wasn't open for 2 days. But those guys are great. We had a lot of concrete repairs done, just building door repairs. Some of the doors wouldn't shut. You had to slam them. I'm 245 pounds on a good day, and I got to slam myself into some doors to get them shut. So we had all that stuff fixed and ready to go. So all the doors are working in operations. With that, kiddie pool backwash valve was replaced, replacement of Zecoflex around the pool, and that's the little rubber strip that goes around between concrete slabs and stuff like that in the pool, so water can get down there and ruin the foundation. I kind of put some pictures of some of these projects on here that I took before. You can see the AED was duct tape shut, the batteries are dead, and this and that. So we have obviously a brand new AED, everything's up to date, ready to go, no duct tape, where it needs to be. Some of the lifeguard tubes you can see on the left was after, and before was before. Obviously, so some of those were in bad shape. So they still worked, don't get me wrong. It was just, they probably should have been replaced a little bit ago. Other things we did, just kind of the emergency grab bag, updated and restocked. Guard tubes were replaced, and you can see the pictures. The guard chairs had cracks in them and didn't turn or didn't swivel, so we ended up getting those replaced just recently as well. And the umbrellas were kind of zip tied to the posts and stuff like that, so they would stay up, and we got those replaced as well. Other items, the ADA handrail in the men's shower, that's how we found it. You can see the picture there. So again, our amazing park staff jumped in, and it would have took me probably 30 minutes to fix that, and they did it within like 2 minutes. They have all the tools and ready to go, and just went in and got that done. We got an Autovac system for the pool. This was a $7,000 item, although the ROI on it's pretty good because it saves our staff, a couple of different staff members a day, like 45 minutes to an hour, just in vacuuming the pool. It gets all the big chunks. It's a big robot. You push a button, throw it in, come back the next morning, the pool's vacuumed, and then there's still some stuff you have to get, don't get me wrong. And that's why it does save some time with the pool, but it's a pretty cool deal. It works great. Other things that we did, our IT department, again, I'm kind of giving them kudos too. They jumped in, helped us out. We've updated, all of our phones are updated. So now we can transfer calls from here, City Hall, to the pool, back and forth with Willow, our course coordinator over there. All of our laptops are up to date. Security cameras are up to date. Wi-Fi, now they have Wi-Fi on deck. So when parents are there with kids with swim lessons or whatever, you have Wi-Fi on the deck at this point, which was pretty cool. Eli with IT climbed the water tower, put up a big thing there and a straight shot from the water tower. So it's too high for me, but he was able to get up there and do that. Chemicals stored in the pump room. We organized that again. Noah, one of our maintenance guys there, as well as Willow and Avery. I was super impressed. I wish I would have taken before and after pictures of the pump room, because it was literally had to walk sideways through it and kind of tiptoe around stuff. You didn't knock things over. It is perfectly organized now. Things were thrown away that have been there and haven't been touched for 10 years. I mean, it's immaculate. So that staff did a really good job of that. Pool fence latches, the baby pool and the big pool are separated by a black fence, wrought iron fence. Those lashes weren't working, so we had those replaced and repaired. Otherwise, the gates were just open and little kids can go from one pool to the other, and we didn't really want that. It's a safety issue, so we replaced those just recently as well. See, men's and women's locker room, before we took it over as well, we did an ADA audit of the facility, and there's some ADA concerns that we did that there's still some, but the easy fixes we did. So some of the ADA compliant stuff in the men's and women's locker room, the changing area, 5% of your changing areas have to be ADA accessible with a 5-foot radius for a wheelchair to turn around. We didn't have that. So again, our park staff, jumped in and was able to take out one partition to make basically 2 small change rooms into one to meet the compliancy. So we have that now. And that was both in the men's and women's. A couple in the family restroom, some of the paper towel dispensers were placed in the wrong spot, so you couldn't open the ADA stall door as far as it needed to be. So we had those relocated in the tail. Again, our park staff jumped in and did that. The VGB, that's supposed to be Virginia Graham Baker, drain covers were all updated and replaced. That's basically an anti-suction deal, anti-entrapment drains for all the pools, because there's a lot of force sometimes that goes through those drains when the pumps kick on. So those are anti-entrapment drains. One of the big undertakings we did is we got a contract with Personnel Plus to hire all of our guards. In doing that, we hired 42 guards. Last year they had 35. This year we have 42, and we still wanted to be open weekends. We really couldn't. I would say I think 22 of those guards can only work 19 and a half hours a week or 20 hours a week per their schedules, summer vacations, all the above. And at this point, we were taking anybody we could get that would be a lifeguard. So we took them. So did that, and no big deal, but I am a certified pool operator again. So I can deal with chemicals and things like that. And that was when I was in California overseeing a pool. That used to be a 3-day course. Now what they did is they did about 12 hours of online course stuff that you have to take tests and pass tests and all this kind of stuff. Then you have to sit in a classroom all day and work with chemicals and learn pumps and things like that. And I was a little pass. I got a B+ on the tests. A little upset about myself, but I did pass. All you needed was a C- to pass. So I think I did pretty good. Still hang it. Doesn't say my grade on there, but I passed.
Pass is a pass.
Pass the pass. Some other things were some of the projects that are in progress right now. So the pool UV systems in the state of Idaho does not require UV system for public pools, although they highly recommend it. The UV stuff really just helps with stuff that chlorine doesn't quite get. So everybody says you should really have a UV system. So the UV systems that we had in place, or Ward had in place right now, are old. There's no replacement parts for them. They don't make those brands anymore or anything. So if something were to break, we didn't have them. The big pool UV actually stopped working about 18 months ago. So it's all getting replaced. The UV system is literally sitting in the pump room right now, waiting for install from an electrician to come available to install the electrical part. And then Idaho Pool Modeling will come over and actually install them. So we're hopeful that'll happen sooner than later, but right now we're fully operational, ready to go. And the same goes with the baby pool UV system there too. One thing that we were really kind of disappointed in is we had to remove the 1 meter dive. Right there, that picture is the base and what the base looks like. We were looking at, we had 3 different pool companies come and see what they could do for repairs. None of them would do it because of liability stuff with diving boards. I had 2 different welding companies come and look at it to see if they would weld on it. And none of them thought a weld would even hold, but at least I had to, cross that option out. So ultimately we had to get it removed. I have an RFP out right now, or in purchasing or procurement's hands. They're hoping to have that out and published by the 17th, and we'll get that going. That will be a next spring project though. So this year we will not have that 1 meter dive. So hopefully we get a good price on it. We'll have it installed next spring before we open next year. We'll have a 1 meter dive again. The good news is the 3 meter dive, which is the high dive, is still good to go, ready to go. And knock on wood, nobody's really, the little slide or the little diving boards out of sight, out of mind, nobody's asked about it. So we're hoping to get it replaced, so it'll be good. Right now, on top of that, there's 3 pool slides there. One of them, we found a crack. Again, I had our park staff come over and do an inspection. Those guys are versed in doing playground inspections all the time. So I said, hey, apples and oranges here, but come over and look at the slides, tell me what you think. And they found some cracks in one of the slides, which is a safety issue, which in turn we had to order parts for it, which in turn is a 10-week turnaround for the parts. So we're hoping to have them before we close the pool, but we'll see how that goes. But Phil, again, and those guys can do just about anything. One of my goals at the beginning of the season was to get that ADA chairlift operational. That thing has not been operational for almost 2.5 years. That is something that I kind of take, look at it pretty seriously to get somebody with a wheelchair access into the pool. The one that they had is not operational. We ordered parts several months ago. It was all ready to go. And then one part kind of got delayed for some other reason, but I've been promised by the manufacturer, it'll be shipped on the 13th and it should be here within a week after that. And then it's a simple plug and play and we'll have an operational ADA lift. So there is one resident that I've been in touch with, just kind of keeping her up to date because that was one of her main complaints that I got aware of right when we first took over the pool. So been keeping her up to date, but that is my goal to get that operational. As soon as that part's in, I will personally go down and plug and play and it'll be ready to go. See here, automation system that just helps us check chemicals constantly. One of the things we're going to do too is there's a secondary catch basin. So in our chemical rooms right now, if you spill chemical or one of the jugs gets a crack or whatever, it spills out onto a public walkway, which we don't like. So there needs to be a secondary catch basin there to where if that does happen, it obviously gets caught. It doesn't go out on the sidewalk and we call fire to come over. We already have a plan with fire. They'll come over, kind of make sure the air is secure. Call our pool maintenance staff. They come over, they're trained to deal with the chemical and they'll do all the cleanup mess with that. So that's going on with that. Moving on, some of the future projects. I tried like no other to get that facility painted, the pool room painted and the outdoor stairs and railing painted, because right now there's a bunch of chip paint over there. It's a cosmetic thing, so I'm not too concerned about it, but I just like it to look like it's a city standard and up to par and looks good, right? I had 3 different companies bid it, and then ultimately they said, sorry, we can't do it. Whether they either couldn't get the right paint or material, because the pool rim obviously has to deal with chemical quite a bit, chlorine, those types of things. There's a special paint you have to use. Or they just didn't have the staff or the ability to do it. So that was kind of frustrating. So that again will hopefully be a spring project for next year. Obviously paint has to be at certain temperatures and weather related, those types of things. So we're thinking hopefully next spring. And then just miscellaneous pump room items that were called out in the report that we got from Idaho Pool Remodeling prior to us taking over the maintenance and stuff. So those are the future projects that we'll have. I just kind of mentioned couple of them, but there's quite a bit to go through that are just kind of tedious annual things you need to keep up with. With that, I'll stand for questions. Yes. Normally I use this as with Jake Garrow back and forth.
So,
Use it on myself today.
so we'll make sure that he knows that.
Yes.
So Garrett, the pool's heated.
Pool is heated. The baby pool is set at 85 for the little ones. And I think the big pool is set at like 77. Don't quote me on that one, but roughly. But yes, it is heated.
Congratulations on your certification.
Yeah, no big deal. Yeah. Nice.
That is an enormous task.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you guys did get some life parts.
Yeah. We're a little scared there for a minute, but the high school job fair that they went to, when I say they, Avery and Willow, the 2 gals that are basically, they run the pool, those 2 do. I just get out of their way, to be honest. And they went to the job fair and they ended up getting 8 more kids to come and be lifeguards. So we were literally at 35 roughly. And, you know, we have 43 now counting Willow, and Willow is the city employee, aquatics coordinator that's trained to teach everybody all the lifeguard stuff. She's the trainer of a trainer type of thing with Ellis. So she's been a huge resource for us, and she's just been a rock star. So it's been good.
Anyone have any comments? Gary?
All right. Hopefully I didn't bore you guys too much. Right on.
It's been a huge lift. Can I just say, I just want to give some props to Garrett. It's been just an amazing amount of work that he took on to get this ready for this opening. the opening week was,
Monday, last Monday.
yeah, just this last Monday. So
And with all the lessons full, I mean, there's clearly a need and a want
Yeah.
from the public. So.
The operational portion of that, I have to give Willow Spurlock or she gets all the credit for that. I did all the projects and get the pool like ready to go. The operational stuff, hiring guards, training guards, getting just a small little logistics. She has just been, I mean, couldn't do it without her. So it's been good.
Good job.
Cool. Thanks.
Really good job. Okay, so we do not have any workshops tonight, so we can move on to staff reports.
all right.
Wanna go, Steve?
I'm going to focus my comments primarily on all things related to the master plan. Got three main components: the master plan itself, the cost recovery model, and the community center. So just a quick update there. The master plan, we had an open house here at City Hall last month, just about 3, maybe 4 weeks ago on May 19th. That went well. We had a better, it's hard to say it was a phenomenal turnout, but you never know how many you're going to get at something like that. And we had probably about 20 citizens stop by, people stop by to look at the displays. It showed the results from the surveys. It showed the results from the inventory and talked about the key issues matrix and some of the top issues that were identified that are going into the recommendations phase. The next item is the cost recovery. And we had our public sorting session at the end of April. There's going to be an update next Tuesday at City Council. If you're curious, you're welcome to tune in. It'll be Zoomed. And Teresa Jackson will be presenting to council an update of the results of that public sorting session and show the pyramid that resulted from that. She will actually be back in town again in just a couple of weeks for a series of staff workshops that'll look at our historic cost recovery rates compared to what that reconciled public pyramid suggests they should be. So lots of work going on there. And then the community center, this is the one I'd like to get on your radar. Looking to the future, June 22nd, we'll have an open house about the community center right here at City Hall in conference rooms A and B, right in front, side the front doors there. There will be 2 separate times. There will be a 2-hour block over the lunch hour from 11 to 1, and there'll be another 2-hour block when people are getting off work from 4 to 6. We found in the last open house, I didn't think the 4 to 5 hour would be as popular as it was. I thought after people got off work would be the most popular and stop by, but actually before 5 was really popular. So we're going to make sure that we have that open then. Just wanted to mention 2 things since Mike's not here. One, Discovery Park Phase 2, well under construction. I don't know if you haven't been out there recently, you can get to the park. Lake Hazel Road is under construction, but access to the park from Eagle Road is still open, and the road closure sign says as much. It says access to Discovery Park open, so you can still get there. And then the golf course irrigation project kicks off later this month in a couple weeks. So major construction project going to kick off here soon for the golf course. Want to give I'll turn over to Garrett. Just want to give him some kudos for participating in the Dairy Days planning, but maybe you can mention that with your updates, and I'll stand for any questions.
I don't have any questions, but I did go to the golf course on Mother's Day to hit some golf balls, and someone had broke into the pro shop. But they took all the change, the quarters.
Yeah.
It was $6 instead of the thousands of dollars of expensive equipment.
Yep.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. Oh, but it looks very nice.
Madam President. Really quickly, I'm glad that she brought that up because going door to door, running for the legislature, it's almost the total flip. When I ran for city council in 2017, I had people asking me questions that were related to the legislature. This time it was the total opposite. I had one of the biggest compliments I received on behalf of City of Meridian, or towards City of Meridian on behalf of its citizens, was how well the transition of taking ownership of the golf course has been. Voters, especially in the Lakeview area, are incredibly satisfied, but even in people in the Bear Creek area and others, other areas, that was one of their major compliments that they extended. I only had one complaint, and that was an elderly lady who made it a tradition of hers to go get her sandwich on Mondays for lunch at the golf shop or at the restaurant, and she found it closed. So I just reassured her that everything's normal. I'm sure that it was probably just an understaffed day.
There definitely were some closures over the winter. But we have a good relationship with Roosters that is taking over the operations. I mean, they've been operating it for a while, but they're actually going to take it on as a ongoing concessionaire. There was an agreement on city council agenda just a few weeks ago, working on getting liquor licenses transferred, and there's lots of stuff like that happening behind the scenes before the formal handoff goes. But yeah, they are going to be full on operating that as more of a lease agreement here soon. Thank you for passing that on, though. I'll try and remember to let Mike know, because that's great to hear. And even more importantly, I'll try and remember to let the staff out there know, because they've been doing a great job and have taken on a lot themselves to make the transition smooth.
All right, my turn again. I'll try to be quicker than the last time. So you guys all know I've been doing pool stuff, master plan stuff, community center stuff, cost recovery stuff, just staff stuff in general. Been helping a little bit with Dairy Days. They have a meeting right now at 6 o'clock that I was supposed to be at, but I was giving the presentation here. But really the park side of the Dairy Day stuff is same as normal. We're providing staff, park reservations, parade pickup, those types of things. So we're all good to go there. But the Dairy Day stuff is happening soon. Kind of good transition to that is our sports leagues and stuff. There will be a cornhole tournament we're putting on for Dairy Days. That'll happen Friday night. Hang out down there. I think they can take up to 30 or 40 teams, something like that. So cool tournament. But sports, they're doing softball, end of season softball tournaments getting ready to start for the spring season. The fall season's registration is open right now. I believe the deadline for that is the 22nd. Summer volleyball is a 4-on-4 league that's happening at home court. They're also doing a summer basketball league, which is 3-on-3 at home court. And then, like I mentioned, the cornhole tournament, we actually have a cornhole league going right now as well. Arts and culture. Yeah, poor Cassandra isn't feeling good right now, so she's out, but she's been working on traffic box agreements, mural series, the 5 Mile Creek Trailhead project. That RFP was out for the art there. And there's lots of miscellaneous projects, but one thing that we're working on getting her right now is an intern, a paid internship. So we're going through applications for that right now. And then she's out sick. So we're going to have to postpone that for about until she gets back. So
If I could just make a quick interjection on that 10 Mile Trail Hub.
yes.
Kim, do you remember the number of applicants that have responded? Was it like 35, 32? I mean, it's a huge number. We've never had that number, that amount of artists respond to an RFP. So it's an amazing number. I think that there might be a commissioner or two that's going to be on the review panel, but so there's going to be a lot to review, which is exciting. I mean, I think it's great that there was so much interest in submitting for development of that art piece for our trailhead.
Yeah. Last I heard there was 32. So I think that was Monday.
And there were some local artists, but nationwide, and I think maybe even a couple from other countries. So it was, the budget on that project went up a little bit, but it was still really impressive. Like, I think she knows what she's doing, Cassandra. Sorry, you missed meeting her tonight.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's awesome.
And to wrap things up on my end, events is just working on obviously a movie night. If you guys have the opportunity, this Friday is the first movie night of the summer. Gene Kleiner Day, like Shelley had said, 4th of July, all that kind of stuff. Shelley kind of mentioned all the events earlier. Classes and camps. We're getting ready to start camp next week. They're moving into the schools right now. Starting to just, things are happening. Got all kinds of stuff going on. Home court, pickleball. Well, pickleball is still busy. But as weather gets better, obviously people start going outside, but home court's still pretty busy with pickleball. The Ymca Summer Basketball League starts in there next week. There's a BSU basketball camp. Roberto Bergeson, who was played for BSU back in the day, he's now coaching there, and he is always at home court. So they're actually providing a basketball camp, BSU is, over at home court here in the near future. Same thing with a volleyball camp. And then we are still short a part-time staff over there. So if you know anybody that wants to work primarily weekends and evenings, part-time at home court, it's a great job. Get to hang out in the gym all day, sleep some floors. We're still looking for a part-time staff there. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
Garrett, what day is the parade for Dairy Days? Do you know?
Parade is the 25th.
25th. Thank you. So is there a whole week of events?
I believe events start Thursday, do the math, 23rd. With a concert, band, those types of things Thursday. And then I believe Friday is the cornhole tournament, some other festivity stuff down there, and the carnival, obviously. Then Saturday's the parade and other things too. So if you go online at the Dairy Days website, it'll have a list of schedule and everything. They have quite a few stuff going on. Yeah.
Yeah, I marked my calendar as if things start on Wednesday, but Wednesday through Saturday. So the 22nd through the 25th. I'm not sure what, if anything, is going on
Happens when,
Wednesday,
yeah.
but obviously the big stuff, the parade's on Saturday, the 25th, and lots of stuff going on in the park.
Yeah.
Certainly on Friday.
I believe Thursday morning is when they're setting up the stage for the band for that evening. So
And I think the pancake feed's back, and it's going to be Thursday night, I believe.
Very nice.
lots of stuff happening in June. Like Shelley said, it's too much to mention half the time.
We're back, right? Very good. Okay, does anyone have any comments? Just on the top reports. Kim, did you want to go into any more? Or
Madam President, I do have some more updates if you're interested. Thanks.
skim past you?
We did get bids back on our 2 pathway infill projects on Linder Road. And the bids ranged in price quite a bit, but we got some really solid, quite low bids that were, so probably on those 2 projects, we were more than $100,000 under the engineer's estimate. So that was exciting to feel like we felt good about the contractor and could award, but it wasn't quite as expensive as we thought. So our contractor working on the Creason connection is due to start by the end of the month. This is north of 8th Street Park. Turns out when I talked to him, he said he's working on one of Scott's pathways near Barber Park, so which really needs repairs. So anyway, he's going to jump onto that Creason job. It's just a short segment through the neighborhood and should be able to happen pretty quickly once it gets going. We had a little bit of a development on the Rail with Trail project, which is just west of City Hall. It's rail alongside trail, as I always say, but there's a segment from 3rd Street to 8th Street that has been funded with some federal funds, but we didn't have access out onto 3rd Street. So we had negotiated a potential land trade with the Head Start organization that they had some property that they couldn't really use for anything, and we needed it for a pathway. So we've been waiting on that. There've been some bonds on the property. They mature actually this December, but we couldn't really, nothing could change hands until then. But the board voted on it's been a couple of years that we've been working on this. So the board met again and agreed that they were still in favor of this trade. So we're going to be meeting with the people who administer the federal funds and also the Head Start people, just to get as much done in advance of that December date as we can, so we can get the funds encumbered. But I think finally that we had most of a project and not that final piece of access. So it looks like it's coming end of the year. And the Locust Grove, still waiting on final approved plans, but had 2 easements. We have all the easements we need for Locust Grove. So we had, you work a long time and then suddenly like they come in quickly. So that was nice. They've been recorded. We've got all the permissions and hope to get going on that within a few weeks. We're also working on the Uli panel. That is going to happen August 8th through 11th. And so start off on Monday, the 8th. It'll be Meridian hosting and giving them kind of, here's the project, here's the information, touring the site. On Tuesday, the 9th from 8 to noon or approximately will be stakeholder interviews in small groups or clusters of people who have similar interests. So if you'd like to be included in that, I'm sure we'll be asking, but you might kind of at least make a note of that on your calendar. And then the final presentation by the panel will be Thursday, the 11th in the morning. We tried to make that happen for our August Pathway Commission meeting. It just didn't quite fit the time frame. So, but it will be just the morning after the meeting. So hopefully some of you will be able to attend that. And those are the highlights. Thank you. Any questions?
Do you have any questions? Amazing. You had a lot to say earlier, so I think we tortured you both. Okay, does anyone have anything else? I guess then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam President,
Commissioner Gelsomino.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Nesmith seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.